Kate's birthday dinner was supposed to be this feel-good, memory-making kind of night. The kind that ends with her head on my shoulder in the Uber home, smiling into the collar of my coat while whispering, "Thank you for everything." That's how I pictured it when I booked the restaurant 2 months earlier. An upscale Italian spot tucked off a quiet block in downtown Austin. The place had old brick walls, flickering candlelight at every table, and the kind of waiters who remembered your drink order after the first visit. Kate loved that kind of attention, said it made her feel seen. But I should have known something was off the moment we arrived. She barely touched my hand on the way in. No real eye contact. Her smile was practiced, polished, like something she'd worn before stepping out of an elevator at work. She looked beautiful, of course. She always did. Black silk dress, a gold chain I'd given her last Christmas, hair done in loose waves, framing her face just the way she liked. But there was distance in her, even before we sat down, like she was physically there but mentally tuned to a different channel, one I didn't have the frequency for anymore. We were seated at a round table toward the back, half-tucked near a window. Friends were already sipping cocktails and sliding into their seats. And Tom, her boss, was there too. That caught me off guard. I hadn't expected him to show. She'd said he might be traveling. I shook his hand out of habit, and he gave me this too familiar grin, like he was in on some joke I hadn't been told yet. We made it through appetizers just fine. The conversation was mostly light, filled with the kind of easy banter you get when people are trying to impress each other but still pretend they're not. Then came the wine. One of Kate's friends insisted on ordering a bottle of red from Napa, something I couldn't pronounce but apparently Kate and Tom both knew. They exchanged a glance when the cork popped. Just a flicker, just long enough for me to register it. Then the waiter came around to top everyone's glass. That's when it happened. Kate reached across the table to adjust her menu or maybe her napkin. Something small. And that's when I caught it. A smell. Not the garlic from the pasta or the warm scent of the wood-fired bread. It was sharp, rich, a cologne I'd never worn. Not once. And I knew it wasn't mine because it was coming from her wrist. She didn't notice me noticing at first. I just stared at her arm resting on the table, that pale inside of her wrist catching the candlelight. She never wore perfume there. Ever. She was always careful, just behind the ears or lower neck so it didn't overwhelm. But this wasn't perfume. This was masculine. And deliberate. The smell clung to her like it belonged there. I sat back a little, watching her pour herself some wine. That's when I saw the second thing. Tom's glass, just next to hers. Same side of the table. And there, right there on the rim, was a lipstick mark. Kate's exact shade. Deep burgundy. A matte color she swore by because it didn't smudge. Except it had. It had left a perfect, unmistakable kiss-shaped print on the edge of his glass. I blinked once. Then again. My mind started moving faster than I could think. I checked Kate's own glass. Clean. Untouched. Tom reached for his and took a sip. Completely unaware. Or maybe very aware. I couldn't tell anymore. Kate noticed where my eyes were. She tracked the direction of my stare. And then, like clockwork, she shifted. "Oh my God," she said, letting out a light laugh. "These glasses got all mixed up, huh?" Her voice was breezy, but her eyes were sharp, calculated. Tight table, I guess. She reached across, swapped Tom's glass with hers like it was no big deal. "Can't trust these waiters," she joked, nudging the guy next to her. Everyone laughed. Except me. Then she lifted her own glass in the air and said, "Okay, enough with the glasses. It's birthday toast time." And just like that, the moment vanished under a chorus of cheers and clinking crystal. Everyone raised their drinks, even Tom, who grinned like someone who just won a quiet bet. But my hand didn't move. I just stared at her, at the little smirk she wore when everyone turned to sing. At the way her hand lingered on the stem of her glass, wrist turned inward, right where the scent still hung like smoke. I couldn't smell anything else for the rest of the night. Later, someone pulled me aside to take pictures. I stood beside Kate, arm around her waist, camera flash lighting up her perfect smile. She leaned into me like everything was fine, like I hadn't just watched her lie with a joke and a lipstick-stained glass. I wanted to ask, right there, in front of everyone. I wanted to say, "Whose cologne are you wearing?" Or, "Why didn't you drink from your own glass first?" But I didn't, because I couldn't be sure. Not yet, because everyone was watching, and because she had done it so smoothly, so effortlessly, that I started to doubt if I'd really seen what I thought I saw. That's what she did. She could twist a moment in real time, turn suspicion into coincidence, all without blinking. The rest of dinner went on. Plates came and went. Gifts were passed down the table. She unwrapped scarves, books, a pair of earrings from her sister. When she got to my gift, she kissed me on the cheek and whispered, "You always know." But I didn't know. Not anymore. When the bill came, Tom insisted on covering half. "Kate's a team MVP," he said, flashing that same grin. "We take care of our own." Everyone clapped again. Kate blushed and waved it off. I watched her slip her phone into her purse with the screen facing down. Outside, while waiting for the rideshare, she leaned into me, laughing about something her friend had said about the waiter's mustache. I didn't respond. She noticed, of course. "You good?" she asked, brushing my coat sleeve. "Yeah," I said. "Just tired." She nodded slowly. "Long day, huh?" "Yeah," I said again, staring out at the street. The cologne was still there, still faint on her skin. Back at home, she went to the bathroom first, said she had a wine headache coming on. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the nightstand, thinking about how tightly she'd grabbed the narrative when that glass mix-up happened, how she'd slipped right into control, like she'd rehearsed it. I told myself I was imagining things, that birthday dinners are chaotic, that cologne can linger from someone brushing by, that lipstick could have transferred from napkins, that maybe, just maybe, it was all nothing. But something deep in me had shifted. A silence had started forming where trust used to be. I didn't know it yet, but that night, right there in that restaurant with the birthday cake and the smiles and the toasts, that was the start. The first quiet fracture. The first time I looked at Kate and didn't see my person. I saw someone I didn't quite know anymore, and I think she knew that I knew, because for the first time in 8 years, she didn't kiss me goodnight. In the weeks after Kate's birthday dinner, I kept telling myself I was being paranoid. That night at the restaurant had left a bruise in my mind, one that didn't go away no matter how many times I replayed her laugh, her explanations, her toasts. But every time I tried to push the suspicion down, something new surfaced. A detail I'd overlooked. A behavior I'd brushed off as stress or just work. I started looking backward, and once I did, everything began to form a shape I couldn't ignore anymore. It was like putting together a mosaic, fragment by fragment. Alone, each piece seemed random. Together, they painted a different picture. The first shift I remember now was the passcodes. She changed them. Her phone, her laptop, even the pin she used on our shared tablet. One morning, I tried to check the calendar for a trip we'd been planning, and it just asked for a password. "Oh," she'd said casually, without even looking up from her coffee. "They updated our security protocols at work, and I just mirrored everything over. I'll give it to you later." But later never came. At the time, I thought nothing of it. We both had our own lives, after all. I wasn't the kind of husband who needed to know every tap of her phone screen. I trusted her. I really did. Then there were the showers. She started showering right when she got home. Like immediately. She'd come through the door, heels off, coat still draped over her arm, and beeline it straight to the bathroom. No hi, no kiss. Not even a, "How was your day?" Just, "I feel gross, long meeting." Or, "I need to wash the day off." Once or twice. Sure, everyone needs a reset. But 3 nights a week? Then 5? Then every single time? I remember one night she came back later than usual, said she'd grab drinks with the fundraising team. I offered to pour her a nightcap at home, but she declined and disappeared down the hall with a soft, "I smell like a bar." She was in there almost 25 minutes. When I passed by the laundry basket afterward, I noticed her blouse crumpled inside out, with the faintest streak of something on the collar. Lipstick, or something else. Then there was the perfume swap. Kate used to wear a soft peach scent. Something subtle and floral. I'd once told her it reminded me of the first time we met, when she was in a yellow sundress in late May, holding a lemon lavender tea like it was a wine glass. It became her default. But lately, that scent had disappeared. Instead, it was something new. Muskier. Heavier. Almost spicy. I made a joke about it once. New brand. But she brushed it off, saying the other one had been discontinued. She never asked if I liked the new one. That should have told me something. Our conversations started to flatten out too. We still talked, but it felt like we were playing a game of safe topics only. Surface-level updates. Her days suddenly became busy or fine. The energy was different, guarded. I'd ask how a big donor meeting went, and she'd respond with, "We'll know more next week." That was it. Next subject. She also stopped using her own car. That was another shift I didn't catch until weeks in. Kate had always liked driving, said it helped her think. But one night, when I asked where her car was, she said she'd taken a rideshare to avoid downtown traffic. Understandable. But it started happening more often. Too tired to drive. Parking is awful. Quicker this way. Her car would sit in the driveway all weekend, even though she claimed to have been running errands for hours. I checked the mileage once. It hadn't moved. And then the calendar disappeared. We had this mounted kitchen tablet. Something she'd insisted we get to organize our lives. For over a year, we used it religiously. Work trips, vet appointments, dinner parties, everything went on that calendar. But sometime around mid-January, her events stopped showing up. I figured she'd just started using her phone again, maybe syncing to a different app. I asked about it and she said, "Yeah, I've been using my office's shared system more lately." The tablet was lagging. Thing is, the tablet wasn't lagging. It just didn't have anything on it anymore. And then, one day, I searched the Foundation's website to show a colleague one of Kate's fundraising initiatives. I couldn't find the report she said she'd worked on for 2 weeks straight. It wasn't in the newsletter. It wasn't in the upcoming events. It wasn't anywhere. When I asked, she looked up from her phone and said, "Oh, it was internal. Just prep material. Nothing flashy." She smiled, kissed my cheek, and changed the subject. That used to be enough. But it wasn't anymore. Once I started noticing the changes, they kept piling up. She started locking her phone at night. No more late scrolls or casual Pinterest browsing. Just a quick check of messages, screen face down on the nightstand, and lights out. When I'd wake up to use the bathroom, sometimes I'd catch a glow under the sheets. She'd say it was emails, or her sister venting about her boyfriend, but her fingers always moved too fast for a text. One night, I decided to test something. I asked if I could borrow her phone to order something on an app one didn't have installed on mine. She hesitated, just for a beat, then said, "It's acting up. Just use your laptop, babe." I shrugged and said okay. But that half-second pause told me more than any argument could have. Kate never hesitated before. Everything she did now had a kind of rehearsed quality to it. She wasn't just brushing me off. She was building a pattern of escape routes. Tiny justifications. Innocent reasons. And I wanted to believe them. God, I wanted to believe her. But the weight of them started to stack up, until I couldn't ignore the shape they formed. I started keeping mental notes. Times. Phrases. Changes. There was one Thursday night where she said she was at an off-site meeting with the advisory board. Her location didn't update on Find My for 4 hours. When I texted to check in, it took her 20 minutes to reply, "Still in the weeds. Long night. Love you." I noticed the period after "love you." She never punctuated that phrase. It felt mechanical. Another time, I offered to swing by her office to drop off lunch. She texted back, "Heading to donor lunch. Rain check?" But when I drove by the Foundation's building, her car was in the lot. Lights on in her wing. I sat in the parking garage for a while, staring at her name on the glass door, wondering if she was behind it or somewhere else entirely. And then came the trip to Hood River. She called it a retreat. Said it was for team bonding, long hikes, and strategy planning. 3 nights. I offered to fly up the last day and meet her, maybe grab a little solo time. She shut it down so fast I actually laughed. Andrew, it's not a vacation. You'd hate it. No Wi-Fi, no good food, just work. I'll be miserable. She came back tan, rested, and wearing a new necklace I'd never seen before. It was a gift, she said, from one of the vendors. Just a trinket. I asked which vendor. She told me to let it go. That night, I watched her sleep for a long time. Tried to match the rhythm of her breathing. Tried to find something familiar in the shape of her back under the covers. But all I could think about was how she used to keep me in the loop, used to send selfies from every work trip, used to make space for me in the little things. Now she didn't share. She curated. The woman in our house was still Kate. Still sharp, still charming, still beautiful. But she was moving like someone living parallel to me, just out of reach. And I didn't know when exactly she'd started walking that path. But I knew it wasn't new. The cracks weren't forming. They'd already formed. And now I was seeing the pattern. There's a moment in every betrayal where suspicion stops being a ghost and turns into a body. Tangible. Real. No more guesswork or reading between the lines. Just the truth, undeniable and ugly. For me, that moment came the evening after Kate's birthday dinner. It had been haunting me all day. The cologne on her wrist, the lipstick on Tom's glass, her masterclass in distraction. Couldn't let it go. I didn't have a smoking gun yet, but my gut was starting to feel less like paranoia and more like pattern recognition. Something was there. I just hadn't looked in the right place. And then I remembered the doorbell camera. Our house has a front-facing smart cam, motion-activated, time-stamped. I'd installed it myself a few years ago when some packages went missing in the neighborhood. It logs every ring, every movement, and it stores video for up to 30 days. I usually delete them without thinking, but this time I had a purpose. I sat down at the kitchen table after Kate went upstairs for a shower. Again, immediately after getting home. Said she had a restaurant smell in her hair. I poured myself a glass of whiskey, opened my laptop, and logged in. There it was. The full log from last night. We'd left the house at 6:12 p.m. Returned at 11:07 p.m. Her heels clacked up the front steps at precisely 11 hours 7 minutes and 43 seconds, which meant I could work backward from there. The restaurant's valet stand was synced to a third-party app that timestamped pickups and returns. I logged into that too. Her car had been returned at 10:51 p.m. Meaning we'd left the restaurant's doors around 10:45. That left about 15 minutes unaccounted for. 15 minutes between leaving the party and getting in the car. That's what I focused on. The restaurant had a public Instagram. They'd posted a boomerang video of a wine pour around 9:30 p.m. Kate was visible in the background, laughing with Tom. I scrubbed through other tagged posts. One guest had uploaded a group photo with a timestamp of 10:34. Kate wasn't in it. Neither was Tom. My heart kicked up a notch. I went back to the restaurant's website and found a virtual tour. I clicked through to find the layout. Main dining room, kitchen hall, side stairwell for staff. A service corridor that led toward the back of the building. That was it. That was the pocket of space no one would have noticed. I sat there staring at the blueprint on the screen. I already knew, but I needed to see it. I called the restaurant, asked if they had parking lot cameras for the valet. I made up a story about losing a watch, needing help narrowing down time frames. The guy on the phone didn't hesitate. He emailed me a Dropbox link, said their exterior footage refreshed every week. I had less than 24 hours to view it. I clicked. The first few files were uneventful. Kitchen staff on smoke breaks, guests stumbling out laughing, valets leaning against the podium. Then, at 10:41 p.m., the hallway door creaked open. Two figures stepped into frame. One in heels, one in a blazer. Her hand adjusted the side of her dress. His hand went to his shirt cuff. Kate and Tom. They paused near the alley's edge, half-sheltered from view. Kate leaned back against the wall and Tom, God, he leaned in. There was no mistaking it. A kiss. Her fingers at the back of his neck. His hand bracing the wall above her head like a bad rom-com scene that suddenly wasn't funny at all. They stayed like that for 10, maybe 15 seconds. Then he adjusted his blazer, She smoothed her dress again, and they walked calmly toward the street like nothing had happened. That video gutted me. Not because of the kiss, though that was enough, but because of the casualness of it. The ease. Like they'd done this before. Like it wasn't a secret between two people terrified of getting caught. It was routine. Familiar. I watched it again, slower this time. Frame by frame. Her hand on his chest. His mouth grazing her jaw. And the worst part? She was smiling. Not the fake dinner party smile. Not the one she used on me when I brought home takeout. This was different. Soft. Private. Intimate. I felt something crack inside me. Like a snapped tendon in a joint I didn't even know I had. Some piece of me that still believed in her, still held on to the idea that maybe this was all in my head. It wasn't in my head. It was right there. In 1080p. I didn't say anything when Kate came down from her shower. She padded barefoot across the hardwood, dressed in one of her oversized t-shirts. She smelled like eucalyptus body wash and something faintly floral. No trace of the cologne now. She sat on the arm of the couch, scrolling her phone. "Everything okay?" she asked without looking up. "Yeah," I said. "Just tired." She nodded. "Me too." She leaned over to kiss my temple. I didn't flinch, but I didn't return it either. The next morning, I waited until she left for work before I checked the final piece. Her side of the bed had a faint, reddish smudge on the pillowcase. I leaned in and saw it, barely visible under the light. Collar mark. Lipstick or foundation maybe. Or something transferred from someone else's shirt. I pulled out my phone and zoomed in. It was a reddish stain, like the ones you'd get from cheap detergent or fabric softener reacting to sweat. But it was in the exact spot where her neck would have rested. Right side. Same side Tom leaned into in the footage. I checked the time again. 10:42 to 10:56. Exactly 14 minutes. It all lined up. The kiss. The missing minutes. The stain. The missing smile from the group photo. I stood in the hallway and looked at our bedroom door, still cracked open. Everything inside it. The candles on the dresser, the framed photo from a trip to Banff, the stack of unread books on her nightstand. It all looked the same. But nothing felt the same anymore. I wasn't just suspicious now. I was sure. And once you're sure, everything changes. Your brain stops spinning in circles. Your body stops trying to rationalize what your heart knows. All that's left is clarity. Cold, sharp, and merciless. She was cheating. She was sleeping with her boss. And she'd kissed him while I was still paying the damn check. Once I saw the video, I stopped doubting myself. The hardest part about catching someone lying isn't the lie. It's the silence that follows. The quiet, heavy kind that settles between knowing and admitting. For the first time, I wasn't guessing anymore. I had proof. The question now wasn't if Kate was cheating. It was how long and how deep. The next morning, I called in sick to work. I wasn't sick, not in the usual sense, but my body felt hijacked. Every thought was racing ahead of itself. I brewed coffee I didn't drink, stood at the window for hours, replaying that 14-minute clip over and over. She'd kissed him like she'd done it before. Not a risk, not a thrill, a habit. That was what I couldn't get out of my head. The ease of it. By noon, I decided to stop wondering. I was done being passive. If Kate could build a lie, I could build a map. It started with her work laptop. Months ago, she'd asked me to help sync her files to a backup drive when her old one crashed. She'd forgotten, or maybe never realized, that I still had the admin password saved from that night. I used it to mirror her hard drive into a secure folder on my own computer. It took nearly 2 hours, and I watched the progress bar crawl across the screen like it was measuring the decay of my marriage. When it finished, I opened the folders one by one. Most of it was routine foundation documents, donation spreadsheets, meeting notes. But then I found a directory named resources_2 buried inside a folder called conference prep. Inside were hundreds of photos. Not just random snapshots, but categorized albums. Riverside Loft, Retreat West, Hood River 2024, and one labeled Q Room. Each one told its own story. The first set, Riverside Loft, showed Kate in casual clothes, jeans, oversized sweaters, bare feet, sitting on a leather couch I didn't recognize. There were 2 wine glasses on the table in every shot. Sometimes Tom's arm appeared in the reflection of a window or mirror. Sometimes she was alone, but the lighting changed too often to be self-timed. Someone was behind the camera. Someone comfortable there. Next came Hood River 2024. I clicked through a dozen images of forest trails, vineyards, and a cottage with string lights. In one photo, Tom was unmistakably visible, half in frame, smiling toward her. She was holding up a glass of white wine, her head tilted, sunlight cutting through her hair. I checked the metadata. Same weekend, she told me the retreat had been mostly team-building exercises and late nights. Every lie was time-stamped. The next folder wasn't photos but PDFs, Airbnb receipts, payment confirmations, itinerary lists. 2-night stays. Weekends she'd claim to be on-site with donors or finishing reports. Each location matched the same pattern. Remote, scenic, private. Then came something that stopped me cold. A small text file named Script. Docs. When I opened it, the first line read, "If anyone asks, we were at the gala planning brunch. Remember to mention the floral centerpieces." It wasn't a draft. It was a rehearsal. A written alibi. There were several like it, each labeled by date. March 3rd, Foundation Summit. April 12th, Tom's flight delayed. May 7th, board workshop rescheduled. The tone was systematic, like 2 people coordinating a campaign. There was even a section titled, "If Confronted," followed by bullet points. Stay calm. Laugh it off. Use work jargon to bore him. Redirect with humor. Mention his golf trip. She had playbooks for lying to me. That realization hit harder than the video. A kiss could be impulsive. A plan like this required effort, coordination, practice. I leaned back from the desk and just stared at the screen. The person behind these documents wasn't careless. She was prepared. I spent the next 2 days quietly tracing everything. Her transactions, her rideshare history, her message backups. The deeper I dug, the more precision I found. She wasn't sloppy. She was methodical. Every late-night car ride matched an expense. Every client dinner had a timestamp that aligned with Tom's calendar. I exported her ride history from the past 6 months. A pattern emerged immediately. Recurring drop-offs near the same address on Riverside Drive, always around 9:45 p.m. Always returns after midnight. I mapped them out and cross-referenced with the Airbnb receipts. They matched perfectly. She even used different payment cards. Her foundation card for work trips, her personal one for errands, and a third, a digital card I'd never seen before, linked to a new bank account under her maiden name. That account's transactions were mostly cash withdrawals. Small, deliberate amounts. Enough to stay under radar thresholds. Every withdrawal came one day before a late meeting. I wasn't looking at an affair anymore. I was looking at a system. Kate and Tom didn't just cross a line, they built a bridge and charged tolls. On the 3rd night, around 2 a.m., I found a folder named Private Queue Room buried in an encrypted archive. I almost didn't open it. I'd been staring at screens so long that my reflection looked foreign. But curiosity, or maybe masochism, pushed me on. Inside were draft business plans. A company name, The Quiet Room LLC, registered under a shared email. Her name listed as creative director, Tom as managing partner. The first line of the proposal read, "A sanctuary space for elevated experiences by the river." She wasn't just having an affair. She was building a business with him. A secret company. A future. There were spreadsheets estimating costs for furniture, lighting, marketing. Lease proposals signed by Tom. And in a corner note, I found something she'd typed herself. Shift joint expenses quietly starting in Q3. Insurance after January, tell Andrew once launch stabilizes. I read that line 5 times. Tell Andrew once launch stabilizes. Like I was some post-launch formality. Press release waiting for my quote. At that point, I wasn't angry anymore. Anger would have been simple. What I felt was precision, a cold, analytical clarity. The same calm you feel before cutting something infected from your own body. By dawn, I had mirrored everything, photos, files, statements, logs, into a hidden drive. Then I closed the laptop and sat in the dark, the house quiet except for the hum of the fridge. In the next room, Kate was asleep, her breathing even peaceful, like someone living a double life but resting easy because she believed she was still ahead. I thought about waking her then, shoving the proof in her face, demanding she say it out loud. But something in me shifted again. I realized I didn't want her explanations anymore. I didn't need to hear why. I already knew. This wasn't spontaneous. This wasn't weakness. It was a project. A collaboration built on deceit and opportunity. Every alibi was a budget line, every lie a deliverable. Kate hadn't fallen into an affair. She'd planned one. And now I was planning too. There's a moment when the nature of betrayal changes. When it stops being about sex, lies, or stolen weekends, and becomes something else. Something structured, intentional, strategic. That moment came for me when I opened the folder titled Quiet Room, Phase 2. It was around 1 a.m. On a Thursday. The house was dead silent except for the faint ticking of the kitchen clock. I was sitting cross-legged on the floor of my office, cables snaked across the rug, laptop propped up on a stack of legal pads. I had sifted through so many emails, images, and ride logs that my eyes had gone dry. I thought I'd seen everything. And then I found it, tucked away inside a subfolder nested in her Dropbox account. Not on her computer, but synced to the cloud, was a document titled QRoom_LaunchDeck, PPTX. I clicked it open, and the cover slide nearly stopped my heart. The Quiet Room, a concept for elevated space and curated escape. Presented by K+T. The logo was right there on the next slide. A stylized Q, designed with two initials curled into its tail. K for Kate, T for Tom. I stared at it, barely blinking. There was something grotesquely elegant about it. Minimalist font, reverse stone color scheme, branding you'd see in a boutique hotel brochure. The third slide read, Soft launch, summer 2025. Where discretion meets design. That tagline felt like a punch in the stomach. I kept clicking. The deck detailed their vision. A private, members-only space along Lady Bird Lake. Not a restaurant. Not a spa. Something between an immersive social retreat, as they put it. There were bullet points about soundproof rooms, scent-coded lighting, non-disclosure agreements for guests, and curated playlists for mental decompression and creative intimacy. They weren't just cheating behind my back. They were commercializing it. Every next slide made it clearer. They had already scouted 3 potential buildings near East Cesar Chavez, all small, modern structures within walking distance of the lake. One was already under lease, held via Shell LLC, according to the notes. Estimated cost for the renovation was $73,000. Funding strategy? Half through silent investors. The rest fronted through Kate's development budget reallocations. A phrase so casually corrupt it made my hands go cold. Then I hit the budgeting tab. Kate's name was all over it. She wasn't just supporting this project. She was running point on it. Sourcing vendors, vetting contractors, creating customer flows, writing outreach plans. One note read, Andrew's firm has catering contacts. Might be leverageable. My name. In their planning. Like I was a resource to be tapped before being discarded. Another slide. Launch timeline. April. Begin cosmetic renovations. May. Build influencer guest list. June. Secure soft open permits. July. Offload joint credit obligations. August. Relocate personal insurance plus notify Andrew. September. Quiet room launch party. Invite mutuals who don't know status. I stared at that last bullet point for a long time. Invite mutuals who don't know status. She was planning to parade this business, and by extension her affair, in front of our friends without even telling them we'd split. That's how far she'd gamed it out. Her betrayal wasn't chaotic or emotional. It was pre-scheduled. The worst part? There was a folder labeled scripts, conversations. Inside were outlines for exactly how to tell me. Each version began the same way. Andrew, I need to be honest with you about something that's been developing for a while. Then came branching logic. If I reacted with silence, this isn't easy for me either. Please don't shut down. If I raised my voice, I understand you're angry. I would be too. But I need you to know this isn't just about you and me. It's about where I am in my life. If I threatened legal action, let's keep this civil. We've built too much to blow it up with resentment. She had prepared for every reaction I might have, like a hostage negotiator walking into a controlled explosion. I wasn't even a person in this equation, I was a risk variable, something to be managed. There were even lists of shared accounts, assets, and household subscriptions. One line read, cancel, shared streaming, low emotional impact, reassign, car insurance, move post-launch. Do not discuss Q-Room lease terms with Andrew before formal notification. Every item was cold, surgical, efficient. I found a rough draft of her exit plan dated 6 months earlier. Phase 1, emotional de-escalation. Decrease physical intimacy gradually. Limit joint events. Normalize late nights. Phase 2, administrative separation. Move calendar off kitchen tablet. Shift purchases to personal card. Create private emergency fund. Phase 3, personal disclosure. Mid-August, after insurance plus asset shifts. Language, clarity, growth, distance. Avoid phrases that imply regret. I couldn't stop reading it. Not because I wanted to, because I had to. It was the only thing that made her make sense now. Every behavior that had hurt me, every late meeting, cold shoulder, vague excuse, it wasn't messy or spontaneous. It was strategy. She hadn't drifted from me. She'd designed the drift, planned the emotional fade-out the way a PR team plans a product sunset. It made me feel stupid, yes, but more than that, it made me feel obsolete. Like I'd been living next to a quietly running machine. One built to extract my love, my support, my resources, until I was no longer useful. Even her affection had been mapped out. That line from the business plan kept echoing in my head. Tell Andrew after launch. Not before. Not during. After. After I was no longer a liability. After she and Tom had secured their leases, paid off their debts, wrapped me in silence and sent me on my way. I don't remember falling asleep that night, but I remember the dream, walking through a version of our house, but everything was gone. Furniture replaced with white walls and stage decor. Kate was there, giving a tour. Tom stood behind her, smiling at a couple I didn't recognize. The woman said, "It's beautiful. Who lived here before?" And Kate laughed and said, "No one important." I woke up drenched in sweat. From that day on, I stopped thinking like a husband and started thinking like a man being erased. I documented everything, met with a lawyer, locked her out of joint accounts, and froze shared payments. At Kate's next birthday dinner, where she invited Tom and smugly told me to behave, I brought Tom's wife, Emily. I showed her the footage. Silence hit the table like a bomb. Kate turned white. Her carefully built illusion cracked, and no one toasted her that night. I filed asset separation, submitted a conflict report to her board, and gave Emily the full archive. Kate's project stalled. The lease flagged for ethics violations. I moved into a clean, quiet apartment. No shouting, no begging, just closure, legal, documented, deliberate. She didn't just lose me. She lost everything she tried to build on lies.